Welcome back. It's now time to talk about our next activity. So just to review here for a second, I'm drawing our first window or activity. And that was called Splash. That was represented in a file called Splash XML. Had our little image here. It stayed up for 2 seconds, and then this passed to a new activity, which is called main, and that is also represented by an XML file called main XML. In this screen, this is going to change and evolve. The first thing I want it to do is I want to have a button here that's let's say get quote, and when I press on get quote, I'm just going to hard code a symbol, and we'll talk about the stock symbol and how we get the stock symbol through web service, actually through Yahoo Finance web service API. When I click on get quote, I want it to give me the stock symbol, the stock price, and of course it'll look so much better than this in my drawing ability, but you get the idea. And then for the time being, the percentage increase or decrease. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is go ahead and set up main XML so that it at least gets us these elements, and then we'll work on what we do with these elements afterwards. So I'm going to move over to Eclipse, and if you don't have it open already, go ahead and click on main XML. And you know what, I should be shot for doing this, because as you can tell, I still do it. You always want the first letter in your XML files to be lowercase. If you don't, you will get an error. So this is going to remind me, and hopefully remind you, lowercase. Alright, let's go back to Eclipse. And when looking at this XML file, there's a little bit of review here. We had the linear layout, and you can consider the linear layout. This is that we're doing this linearly. And we have a text view in here, and let's look at the graphical layout. The text view currently is this Hello World splash, but we want a button. So there's a couple different ways of doing it. We could go ahead and type it out here. I'm going to go back to the graphical layout and just plop a button. See if I can do that in between. Try that. So now we have a button in between or contained within the linear layout and before the text view. And I'm new on the Mac to how you format this. Let's see. So Shift Command F will reformat it, your code anytime, whether it's an XML file or a Java class file. So here we have our button, and the text of the button is going to be what it's going to say on the button. We want it to say get quote. As you may recall, the Android ID is going to be what we're actually going to refer to the button in our Java code. So I'm going to call this quote button. Actually, I'm going to call it get quote button. And now let's talk about wrap content versus fill parent and what the difference is. I'm going to go back into our Blackboard here. So if we have a screen, and our linear layout, let's say, is the confines, of these corners. If on the width I do wrap content, so if I have a button that's wrap content, and let's say it just says hello, then the button is going to be only as big as the text. So you can think of this as wrap content is going to wrap whatever the content is in the visual element, versus if I said fill parent, then this button, even though it says hello, is going to be as big as it can be within the confines of the screen or the element. You actually, to center it, you need to give it another tag, but this is what the button's going to look like with fill parent. This is what the button's going to look like if you say wrap content. Okay. So I'm going to go back into Eclipse, and I actually want my button, as far as its width goes, to be fill parent. Okay, so by default, you know what? I'm going to just delete this text view, go back into the graphical layout and let you look at it. So we've got get quote, but we also want 3 text views for each element, the symbol, the price, and the percentage increase or decrease. We want those right here. So I'm going to put in 1, 2, 3. And go back into main XML, and this time I'm going to use the shortcut, which I believe was Shift Command F. There we go, and that reformats them. How you want these to look is going to be personal preference. It's not going to make a bit of difference. Okay, so in these text fields, I'm going to eliminate the Android text. Let's do that to each one. And then I need to give them an ID that makes sense to me, that I'll reference in the Java code. So this one we want the symbol, so I'm going to type in there stock symbol output. And the second one, we want the price, so very creatively I'm going to call this the stock price output. And equally clever, or lack thereof, this is going to be the change in percentage. I'm going to say stock change percentage output, just so it's clear. And I actually want to use wrap content here because I want the text views only as big as the numbers that it will contain. save this and let's take a look. So we don't have any text in those fields, that's why they don't show up, but we do have our get quote button. Okay, next we'll go into the Java code necessary to inflate, it's an Android word, to inflate this user interface and get it all set up.